Hello, my name is Paul Marsh, and welcome to Developing Bots using the Microsoft Bot Framework, episode 11. I'm going to be talking about adaptive cards, which is a different mechanism from suggested actions and hero cards. It adds a little bit more UI to our bots, if you want, but it does come at considerably more complexity. So let's delve straight into this. So, adaptive cards. So, do what we normally do. We'll have a look at what adaptive cards are on the web, and this is really the main one. And even if you just watch this, you'll get some idea of the complexity, the additional complexity we get from adaptive cards. You can see some really good examples here of the richness you can get from adaptive cards in a typical kind of weather app. You can see that it's lots of different platforms, not just the bot that it works on. So it can work on all sorts of different mechanisms. Teams, you can have it in WPF, native clients, just lots. So it's very broad and quite an interesting technology to get involved in. But we're here to talk about bots. So how does it help us with the bot? So let's have a look. We've got a nice kind of getting started guide here. We will be dealing with authoring cards mostly rather than rendering cards because we've got the render in the bot itself. And here we can see this sort of typical kind of just basic adaptive card here, just a little bit of JSON, and that's really crucial that because it's very cross-platform, it uses JSON to underpin that. Okay, so let's have a look at how we get started with a bot. So we've got a bit of bot developer stuff here. There's a sample here to get us involved in how it all works, and you can follow this, and it's fine. It's a pretty good start, and we'll certainly we'll start off with this. So first thing we need to do is get our bot back up. So I think here's our bot. As I mentioned before, because it's quite a complicated feature, what I like to do and what I recommend you do is go back to using the Scratch dialog. So let's bring up our bot and make sure the Scratch aspect is still working. So we just need to enable the Scratch here, search for Scratch, re-enable it here, and here we're just going to quit. So we're only ever going to deal with the Scratch dialog. So that's to keep our complexity down. So let's go back to the web. So we want to install adaptive cards. So let's go to our NuGet manager. Let's have a little look at this. Browse. And we'll look for adaptive cards. Okay, just double check something in here. Okay, it's not telling us particularly which version to use. I did see somewhere there was a big thing about don't use the Microsoft one. So if we look back into the bot, if we scroll down here, we've got a Microsoft adaptive cards. This is an old one, so don't be tempted to use that. Just go straight for the adaptive cards one here. I've got a beta one here. Let's take that off. So let's just go straight for that and install adaptive cards. So while that trundles, yes, I definitely do want that. Okay, and these warnings here are because we put that return in for our Scratch dialog. So don't need to be concerned with that. So, okay, we've got that bit done, and now what I want to do is come back to here. We've installed it, and it says dive in, go straight to the samples. Okay, well, that's fine, but let me just come up here and show you some more interesting stuff. So we've got a Schema Explorer, which is really helpful. So this tells you all the different things that you can do, and as we saw, with some very rich things you can do. But probably the simplest way to look at that is to look at the designer. So here we've got some, a lot of different features here. We can pick on these things. We can come along here. We can add a new fact. So if you look over here, this is all very interactive. So I could say, I don't know, color. We can set it to blue. And you can see that that color blue is already here. And this is the JSON creates this card. So we can copy this JSON here, come over here. Now I've created a little file in here called my card. We'll talk about where you put this JSON, but I'm just putting it here for now, just to make these tutorials easier. And one quick thing I'll do in here is you'll notice these things called actions. So if we look here, these are the buttons underneath here. There are different types of actions, and normally when you use a card you tend to be interacting with the web, so you click a submit button and it takes you off to a website, posts to a website. But with the bot we actually want to capture that data, so I just need to change this action here. Well, actually the view one's fine. I want the one underneath it, the OK. I'm going to change this to submit, and we don't need a URL. So let's just change that. So how do we actually use these adaptive cards? Right. Tip number 2, OneNote. Now this is a tip I wanted to introduce to you. The great thing about using OneNote is here I can see you've got a list of things that I've got. But when you have OneNote, what you can do is you can pick out particular aspects of a page. So say you want to remember the adaptive card overview, you can just copy that text, put it straight into OneNote, and yes, it keeps the text, but also importantly it maintains the link to where it got it from. So this is a really useful way of just remembering interesting sites over and above just bookmarking them in your browser. So one of the interesting ones I picked up before is add an adaptive card to a message. So let's click on that link. So this is just straight into the documentation of the bot. Nothing particularly interesting here, but it's add rich card attachments to messages. Topic applies to late. Okay, that actually doesn't really matter. Okay, so we're on straight down here. What kind of interesting things we got here? Okay, thumbnail messages, receipts. Yeah, these are all hero cardy type things. Adaptive cards. Okay, this is kind of where we're getting a bit more interesting. So this here tells us that we need to create an attachment type there. That's okay, that's fine. But it doesn't really help us with a major part of it. So I'm going to go back into our documentation, and I'm going to look at the authoring cards.net. Oh, there's a break-in change. I know I've seen it somewhere. Microsoft adaptive cards. Anyway, so let's have a little look at this. Okay, so this is using the HTTP client. Let's just copy this. Copy this code. And we'll go back to our Scratch dialog. Where's Scratchy? Come here, Scratchy. Right, so I want to put a new step in here. Let's call it show adaptive card async. Generate method. Yeah, we call it async. Let's put that in there. Okay, and then let's have a quick look at what's going on. So we've got our NuGet for adaptive cards. We should just be able to go straight for the using. Yeah, most of those bugs go. It's getting it from HTTP client. We don't need to do that, so we just have a look at the file location from here, and I'll cheat. Again, don't do this normally, but I'm just going to cheat. So let's just bring in the old file loader. I can read all the text straight from that location. And that's my JSON. So that's going to parse the JSON. It's going to create a card, and we can just check the warnings if we want to. Don't need to do that. So coming back to our little bit of code here. So add the rich cards to the messages. It says we need to create an attachment of this type. So that looks good. I'll do that. So we've got our attachment, so we need to now prompt to the user. So we'll just steal the prompt from down here. Just use the same one we were doing previously. Okay, so we don't need any text. It's still a type message. We don't have any suggested actions, but we do have attachments. So it's a new list of attachments, and we're adding this attachment here, our adaptive card attachment. So I think that looks like it. Oh, got a message here. Oh yeah, okay. Because we've got this try catch, it not necessarily means we're going to return anything from here. So what I'll do is I'll just put in, just to make this as quick as possible, I'll just do a next, which will never run, right, unless we get an exception. Okay, so let's run this up. Bring the old bot emulator up. Okay. Type in hi. Okay, so we're initializing. And here's our card. So you can see that's relatively easy to bring a card up, and you can see how we've got a lot of rich text in here that we haven't really had access to necessarily before. We've got someone's image in here. It's really good kind of UI. You can see it's got the additional color blue thing that I just added in Designer, so you can see how it's relatively easy to create these things. But now for the added complexity, right? We want to get some of these values out. So let's have a look at set due date. So it's a nice little expandable thing here. So we'll just type in some date figures and say hello, and we're going to get this data, aren't we? It's going to be relatively easy. It's fine, right? So that's it. Oh, something went wrong. What's going on? What's going on in the world? Strange. So you think? So let's put the good old full exceptions on in here, and let's run through this again. Let's just restart. Just kick off the old dialog so we can see the dialog's running. Let's take that breakpoint off. Don't need that. Okay, set the due date. 12th, 2019. Hello. Okay. Bang. Whoa. Okay, this is in our Maybot bot, and it's really early on. It's having trouble getting the dialogue back. And if you see the error here, there's lots of kind of weird errors about JSON and whoa, okay, what's gone wrong here? Right, now it turns out that sort of officially the bot doesn't really support adaptive cards at the moment. There's a bug in the SDK for. So we need to do a little bit of interesting work to get this working. So let's go back to Scratch dialog. Right, get ready for some really interesting, funky stuff. So first thing to do is we need to put our good old verifier in here. So we're going to call this an adaptive, oops, if I can spell it, adaptive card verify. Okay, and let's just generate that. Okay, so we're going to say if the prompt context dot context dot activity dot value, okay, doesn't equal null, then we're going to be looking at doing something with that value. Okay. Actually, I'm going to leave that off a second. Just a second. Let's just not confuse matters with that. Sorry about that. Let's just stick with this. So the real kind of weird magic is going to come in here. So what we're going to do is where we've got our sending our attachment off, what we need to do is send it immediately. So step context dot context dot send activity, and the activity we're going to send is the one we were sending in here. So the prompt. So we send that prompt off. But we need to prompt, right? So we need to do a little bit of a sneaky little hack here. So ops.prompt equals new. Actually, I do message factory. Can I do message factory.typing? No. Never mind. Equals new activity. And type equals, type is activity types typing. So we're just going to send a typing indicator, so no message at all. So from the user's perspective, we won't really see anything's happening. They'll just see the prompt of our card, and then we're going to fool the framework into thinking it's just got to deal with the typing activity. And then we're going to ask. So let's just check what the next thing is after this. Prompt next action. Let's just put that in there. Breakpoint. Now run. Fingers crossed we've got a good workaround. So let's run this up again. Restart. Okay, set our due date. 2019. Hello from card. There's a typing indicator coming off. It didn't look like that submitted to me. Oh, what happened there? Okay, so that didn't seem to go anywhere. So we've done the prompt. We sent that off. Whoops, we're getting the wrong prompt. Done the typing activity. We've sent the prompt. We've sent the card. We saw the card, but we seem to be stuck. So let's go back and add the card verifier. So adaptive card verify. Generate the method. Okay. So if prompt context dot context activity dot value doesn't equal null, just do something in here. Otherwise, we're going to return true. Let's just put that. Okay, task from result. Because we're not doing a sync just yet. Right, let's put a prompt in there. Let's try that again. I did, yeah. Okay, so we've got the verify on there now. I told you it was complicated. Right. So just run this up again. Restart. Hi. Set due date. Card. Right, so we've got a value coming in here. So you can see the way a card will send it. Will send the JSON of all the different input points. So we can see that we've got a due date is set. I don't know why I'm pointing, you can't see that. So the due date is set here, and a comment and a comment card. And we're just going to let that go through and for the moment and just return true. Now if we look here, what we're going to get here, so the result is null. Ugh, that's not very helpful. Let's have a look at the context. What's the value in the context? The value in the context though has our JSON. So you can see that we can deal with this, and we can use the card and manipulate it. So in fact, whilst the bot doesn't currently officially support cards, hopefully you can see that in reality, we can, with a little bit of magic, we can get it to work. So that's my sort of tip there. So okay, so we know we can display cards and we can look at the values we get from the card, so that's all good. So briefly, what I want to do now is think about how we might want to adapt that card. So if we come back into our where we are designers, so I currently seem to have lost all my designers. So let's go back to adaptive cards. Get back to the designer. So we saw earlier that we got these fact sets in here. So how do we do that programmatically? Well, there is a full SDK for adding these things programmatically, and it is based on the schema, things you see in the schema explorer. So I'll just take you through how we can do a kind of hybrid of that first. So let's come back to our code. Let's go back to our Scratch code. So this is where we're loading the kind of core of our JSON. So let's just have a look what a card looks like. So let's run this up again. And if we look in the start this art and restart. Again, this is all about using Scratch. This enables us to do all this really quickly, try things out. So we're into the card now. Let's open this card up. So what do we have here? We've got some sort of version information, which is actually quite important. You want to make sure you're at a reasonably low version for the bots. As adaptive cards grow, because they support all these other things, the bot doesn't necessarily keep up at the same pace. So just a version thing is something just to keep an eye on. Okay, the main thing is we've got our actions that we saw earlier. We were manipulating those, but the body is where a kind of interesting stuff happens. So we can see we've got an adaptive container in here, and it's got some items. And you've got an adaptive text block and an adaptive column block. And you can sort of open those and get into them. So if we come back to the body, look at the second container, and there's our adaptive fact set, and it has facts in there. We've got our 5 facts. Adaptive, and you can see that these are adaptive cards. Adaptive fact. So when you want a fact, you see fact in the designer. Chances are it will just have the word adaptive in the SDK. Okay, so I'm going to come down in here now, and I'm going to use some of this information. So we got card, and we know we've got the body. Whoops, background body. Got the body, and we know we've got some items. Was it items? I said we know we've got some items. What was it now? Body. Oh, body is an array. Okay, so body number 1. Which has some other body 1 items. Okay, card. Body. Okay, it's an adaptive container. The adaptive container has items. So let's do adaptive container. So we're going to cast that first one into adaptive container. Then we get some items. And in those items, which is fun, adaptive container, then we have items, and we want an adaptive fact set, which is the first of those. So, okay. So now we've got an adaptive fact set. So we're going to cast that. Okay, that's cool. And we've got facts. And then we're going to add a new adaptive fact. Has this got a constructor? Excellent. Dino field some value. Okay. Ooh, missed the bracket. Okay. So you can see we've now got a new field in here called some value. So you can see how by using the SDK you can start off with a kind of block of designer made card, and then via your SDK you can add it. Now you may think, well, why do you do that? Because if you've just use a designer, right? Just add a new field. But the point is, if you're going off to say a database and you're bringing back like a list of available fields, like maybe you want to show a set of contacts, so it's a dynamic set of names you want to put in there. You can see you do a loop over that, and you just be looping over, adding new fields into here. So that's one way to do it. Or you can even just go the full hog, which I think we saw in this example, where is it this example? No, it's not this example. It's the other example, and it was the one from the. What do you know? I can't remember. So many examples, so it gets so confusing. Let's have a look. Is it? Let's open my OneNote. I think it was this one. No, it wasn't that one. That one. No, it wasn't that one. Oh, so many examples. SDK authoring.net. Yeah, here we go. So here they don't start with a JSON file at all. This is all just purely SDK, right? So you just create an adaptive card. And here we're adding a text box. We're going to say hello, adding an image to the body, and then we're just saying, well, this case they're going the opposite way. They're going from the SDK to the JSON. But once you've done this bit, you could just carry on and just use the cards. You don't need to involve JSON at all if you don't want to. You can construct this all by using the SDK. So hopefully I've given you a sort of taste on A, how you can design and use the adaptive cards, B, the wacky world of workarounds that you need to do to get them to work with the bot, and C, that you can, where you construct the card can be a file that's on your website, it can be a file on your disk, it can be a file from HTTP service, it can be embedded, and it can be just straightforward SDK, and you can have all sorts of combinations of all of those. So hopefully this will be a good way for you to start to grapple with adaptive cards. Okay, thanks for listening.